welcome back to Bass News, where we give all the context on our latest stories. I'm your head reporter, and today we've got news of a great war in the Caribbean, specifically the English-dominated colony of Jamaica. This colony is located in the Greater Antilles of the Caribbean, and the people here are calling it the Maroon War. Passing it on to our lead correspondent, John Johnny Johnson, and a reporter of ours to give us the context of this fight for freedom.
Now that we know where we are, let's take a look into the past. What happened to get us here, Mr. John Johnny Johnson?
Thank you, Emma. The origins of the Maroons as a community date back to 1655, when the British were attempting to take over the Caribbean island of Jamaica, which was then controlled by Spain. They were trying to take over this land due to its sugar production. When this land was being overtaken, the Maroons were Spanish slaves, and they would flee their plantations and farms in fear of British colonists.
Where would the Maroons take refuge after fleeing?
Well, Margaret, they would escape to mainly the Cockpit country, which is almost entirely inaccessible. It is within remote parts of the island where it is hilly and densely vegetated.
After this occurred, it resulted in the British slaves of Jamaica fleeing to the active Maroon communities, correct?
Correct, Samantha. This would give the British colonists motivation for war. Although it is important to mention, the Maroon communities themselves are actually split into two different groups, the Windward Maroons and the Leeward Maroons. The Windward Maroons are led by Cow and Nanny, which occupy the eastern part of the island, while the Leeward Maroons are led by Cudjoe in the western part of the island. With Nanny being a strong female leader, the Windward Maroons would carry out the bulk of the war for the community. Thank you, Violet.
You're welcome. Now, as the head journalist of Bass, I'm here to talk to our best reporter about what really happened in the Maroon War. Let's welcome B to the screen as well. So, B, I wonder, when did this war start, and who controlled the territory?
Well, Veronica, the Maroon War itself starts around 1728 within Jamaica, an island in the Caribbean. It was controlled by colonial British authorities at the time, although Spain was trying to take back control for over 5 years.
How long did this event last?
With the war itself starting around 1728 and ending around 1740, it lasted about 12 years.
For such an impactful war, there must have been some important people. Can you tell us more about some of these leading figures?
On the Maroon side, we had the Windward Maroon leaders consisting of Queen Nanny and Cow, and the Leeward Maroon leader Cudjoe. On the British colonial side, there was a series of governors who ruled over Jamaica, such as Robert Hunter, John Asquith, and John Gregory, and an adventurer named Edward Trelawney was significant as well.
What motivated the Maroons and colonists to start this conflict? What was important to them?
Well, Bailey, the colonists were motivated to engage with the Maroons due to their current enslaved people fleeing to join the Maroon settlements, while the Maroons were simply trying to protect their home from colonists. Previously, though, the British would take control over Jamaica from the Spanish for its sugar production, and the Spanish attempted to take back Jamaica using the help of a few Maroons, but they didn't succeed.
What about turning points? When did the war cross its peak?
The main turning point was when a British militia captured Nannytown in 1734, which was a very important place for all of the Maroons. This happened to be the same year Robert Hunter would pass. In 1735, in retaliation for the capture of Nannytown, the Windward Maroons would launch attacks on Titchfield Fort in Port Antonio. The same year, John Asquith passed.
Well, now that we've reached the point of most suspense, I must ask, how did it all end?
Well, Vanessa, after Edward Trelawney appeared, there were multiple treaties signed to end the war. The first offered was signed by the Leeward Maroon leader, Cudjoe, on the 1st of March, 1739. Due to the separation of Leeward and Windward Maroons, after several attempts, separate treaties were signed by the Windward Maroon leader, Cow, on the 23rd of December of 1739. Nanny herself would sign another treaty almost a year later, officially ending the First Maroon War.
Well, thank you so much for all this wonderful news. I hope you all have learned some great information this wonderful morning. This is Emma, Margaret, Samantha, Violet, Veronica, Bailey, Vanessa, signing off.
We'll see you next time.
On Bass News.